The other Chinese companies that this has happened to is Alibaba. There's another one. What's the company? I invested in this company. It was Tekadu. Tekadu. That was another company I invested in. I love that company, but then the Chinese government starts passing laws and investigating things, and the stock price drops because basically the way stock price models work, where they model the price of an asset, is that the more risk or uncertainty there is, the lower the price is for various reasons. So with Diddy, um, here's what I've decided to do in regard to Diddy, because Diddy is caught in the middle of a Cold War between the United States and China. The United States and China are already at war. I do not think that the war might start. The war has already begun, and so effectively, what's happening is that companies that are caught doing business between the U.S. and China are caught in the crossfire. So American companies trying to make money in China are at risk of being punished by America and being punished by China. Same thing is true with Chinese companies that make money in America. Remember, TikTok is a Chinese company that's in America, and I think they were trying to ban TikTok and all this other stuff. And a lot of this also stems back to data. Data is extremely important, particularly as artificial intelligence is emerging, and you're getting into this weird world with 5G and everything else. So data matters. So what's happening now is the US government is very skeptical of any company that might be sharing data about Americans with the Chinese. And the Chinese government is equally skeptical of any Chinese company that may be sharing data with the Americans. In U.S. stock markets, one thing that makes U.S. stock markets the most valued in the world is that there are massive amounts of disclosure requirements that require you to show that your company is not fraudulent, that your company is not going to run off with the money, that your company is being very transparent with investors. Well, part of that transparency, according to the Chinese government, could involve the sharing of customer data, right? So with Diddy, what's happened is that Diddy controls 90% of the ride sharing market in China. And so they got data on probably 500 million Chinese people, and they're listed in the United States. So the Chinese government is basically saying, no, 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 no. You're not going to go and do business with the Americans and meet their disclosure requirements and risk sharing all this data about Chinese citizens with the U.S. government. And where is that going to go? Nobody really knows. But I know that what that's done for me is with Diddy, I'm going to hold my shares. I'm not going to sell because I just think it would be a bad time to sell. I'm actually going to buy more. Because I believe that once the investigation is over, you're going to see the price come back up because some of these companies are just great companies, right? There's a massive market in China. It's 4 times bigger than the United States. There's so much growth over in China. It's ridiculous. So I'm going to hold my investment in Diddy, but I'm probably not going to invest in any more Chinese companies because I think this Cold War is going to get worse. To me right now, Chinese companies are scary. I feel like Chinese companies there's just so much uncertainty there. And I don't recommend digging into that too much unless you really do your homework and really do your research. So don't panic because the price drop. This could be temporary, but just kind of know that it's probably just the beginning. And I think that it could get worse. Okay, so let's see. Dwayne is asking, do you know any other places where I can get stock funding for options trading, like Lilo Trading, One Up Trader? What do you think about Lilo? I don't know anything about Lilo Trading. To get funding, there are apps, and platforms that will give you some margin and things like that. Be careful about trading on margin because if the price of your investment drops too much, you could get hit with a margin call, which would require you to, come up with a lot of cash. And a lot of people get in trouble with margin calls. So be careful with that. Let's see. How do you set prices for consulting services or recommend a place that can help me set prices for online price points? How do I set prices for consulting services? Well, I set my price based on what I'm comfortable with. That's it. So for me, I have some people that require like one-on-ones. And honestly, I don't like to do a lot of one-on-ones. It doesn't mean I love it, but it's very, very hard because my time is so limited. I don't like doing a lot of one-on-ones. And honestly, I stopped doing a lot of speeches and interviews and stuff because it's just kind of draining, and I want to be with my family. And so I encourage you to set your price based on what your economic needs are, and how you feel about giving your time up for that thing. So like when I give a lot of speeches in different places, and the way I set my price literally is based on how I feel. If I don't have a problem walking away from $5,000, $10,000, or whatever, then I'll just say, no, I don't want to do it, right, for that price. But if I'm in a situation where I could use that money, then I say, okay, yeah, I'll do it, right? So I think setting your price based on what you're comfortable with is a decent model to start with. But also, you may also want to, find reference pricing of other people that do what you do, so you can have a point of comparison, right? So you don't end up selling yourself short. Like where I've been criticized actually is I've been criticized for selling myself short. Like I would see somebody with less expertise who was selling something that was 10 times what we might charge in the Black Business School or whatever. And I don't regret that, because I think there's a yin and a yang to everything. There's a cost and benefit to everything. But I will say that at worst, I would say I've probably been the guy who's been accused of not charging what I could charge, because PhD is hard to get, and stuff like that. So anyway, Isla Jacobs, could you give us the trooper of stock we should do for $5 a day for our kids? S&P. Okay, I don't know what trooper of stock is, but I think I get what you're saying. The $5 a day plan, which actually you can find at theallblackagenda.com. If you go to theallblackagenda.com, that's where you can find the $5 a day plan. I highly recommend it because this is the kind of thing, this is where wealthy people come from. This is something that no matter where your income level is, no matter what your wealth level is now, within a generation, your family would be in the top, say, 10 to 15% of all wealth builders in the country. Wealth building is just a matter of time most of the time. Wealth doesn't usually get built very quickly. It gets built over time. So what I would suggest is that if you don't want to make it complicated, then go to the allblackagenda.com, download that ebook, do the $5 a day plan as I described in the book, and invest in something like an S&P 500 index fund, like the SPY. SPY is the ticker symbol. That's an index fund that literally tracks the S&P 500, which means that every time you buy into the SPY, you own a little piece of the 500 most powerful companies in America. So as these companies are growing and making money, and you hear about Apple just made another 100 billion or whatever, you can proudly say, I got a piece of that. Like I own a piece of that. Like that's a good feeling to have. Terrence Williams, can you sell options without holding the actual stock and make money? Yeah, that's what you call selling naked options. And I don't recommend that because it's very risky. And the reason it's risky is because basically when you sell a naked call, that means that you don't actually own the underlying stock. So that means that if the stock price goes up instead of down, you still have to fulfill the commitment that you made to the other party. So you told that party that the strike price is $50, which means that they can buy your stock from you on the expiration date at $50. Well, what if the price goes up to 70? Well, in order for you to fulfill that obligation with say 100 shares, you're going to have to go buy 100 shares of the stock at 77 grand, and then turn around and immediately sell that stock for 5,000. So you immediately have to be willing to give up that $2,000 profit. Whereas if you own the shares, then it becomes what is called an opportunity cost. You're going to say, dang, I could have made 2,000, but I didn't. But you own the stock, so you're not having to come up with all that crazy cash in order to fulfill that obligation. So I do not sell naked calls. It's very risky, and it's a great way to get in financial trouble. So I encourage you to invest, but don't be greedy. All right. So Anita Clark, what was the second platform you buy crypto on? It's called Bittrex, Bittrex. Renee Jackson says, do you recommend that your students read the Wall Street Journal daily? Yeah, I think the Wall Street Journal is great to read. Bloomberg, CNBC, Yahoo Finance, like anything you get your hands on. I think getting those apps and downloading them and just reading that stuff regularly is a great way to really educate yourself, stay informed of what's going on. We talk about, and this is the last point I'll make before we end our class today, is that, people talk a lot in our community, we talk a lot about consciousness, what it means to be conscious. And I really want you to think carefully about what it means to be economically conscious, because this explains why a lot of people struggle economically. If you ask most people who are struggling economically, if you say, how much time do you spend each month studying economics at all, or wealth and money? Most of those people are going to say none, right? In fact, studies show that the average millionaire spends 20 hours a month studying wealth and studying money. And that's why they become millionaires, right? And that's against the myth is that all these people were born with a silver spoon in their mouth, and it's because they're white. No, that stuff, maybe some of that's true sometimes, but that's not really the driving factor. Self-made millionaires are people who have money because they study money. Anything you study and put energy into, you're going to be good at. Great basketball players. There's no player right now in the NBA or the NFL who didn't spend an insane amount of time studying how to play their sport. There's no great rapper who didn't spend thousands of hours in the booth. There's no great, anything. There's no great carpenter who didn't spend thousands of hours learning how to be a carpenter. So if you want to be a wealth builder, you have to be willing to spend that time learning how wealth works and where money comes from. So when you, so really the answer is it makes easy sense to understand why some people never have any money, because they don't study how to get money. They don't know where the money is. They don't know how money works. So why would you expect to be good at something that you don't practice at? So when I talk to my daughter, my 10-year-old, and I say to her, I say, what's the key to success? She'll say preparation, right? And then I say, what makes you great at something? She'll say practice. So preparation and practice really is a form of preparation, right? When I'm practicing, like I show up at the Super Bowl and I have a great performance in the Super Bowl, it's not because I decided to be great that day or somehow God blessed me with greatness that day. The reason I perform well at the Super Bowl or the NBA Finals is because I put thousands of hours of practice in at the gym. I won that championship at least a year or two before that game ever took place. Sun Tzu in The Art of War, and economics is warfare. Global economic warfare is very important. We just don't always know how to play it because nobody trains us on this early. Sun Tzu always said, battles are won before they begin, right? That basically that preparation, that practice, that learning that you're doing when you're reading the Wall Street Journal every day and you're practicing and you're learning and you're preparing and you're understanding and you're gaining an elevated economic consciousness, that's what helps you win the war. So I want to help you win the war. I want your children to win the war, because the wars are going to continue and the wars are going to get worse. And in 50 years, there's going to be an economic battle your child is going to fight. Your grandkids are going to fight. And the reason they're going to win that battle is because of something that their grandma or grandpa did back in the year 2021. So I need you to really practice being a visionary. And I want you, and part of vision means consciousness. Consciousness is awareness. A lot of people talk about being woke, but don't know what woke is. They're sound asleep. I want you to really be economically woke, and that means developing awareness. And part of that awareness comes from practice, preparation, and repetition. The number one way to train your subconscious mind is repetition. Alicia and I talk about that a lot. That's her area of expertise. So you engage in that repetitive act of practice and preparation, and before you know it, you will see your money will be merely a reflection of what you're becoming on the inside. So let's all be woke. That's how we're going to be successful. All right, guys. So I want to let you guys know, if you log in at the blackstockmarketprogram.com, the recording of this class, as well as all the other classes we've done, it's going to be in there. Number two, you can log in and leave your questions for next week. So if you have a question that you want to make sure I answer, just log in at the blackstockmarketprogram.com and put the question in there. Number three, later on today, I'll put the list of the stocks that I like for this week, and you can feel free to take a look at that as well. I'll also email that out to you tomorrow. So have a good day, everybody. It was great to see you. And one last thing I want to mention is if you want to join us for the Wednesday night book club that we're going to cover Black Labor, White Wealth by Dr. Claude Anderson. That's going to be our first book. You can actually go to blackkeystogreatness.com. That's totally free. That's another program you can join. It won't cost you anything. But that's the book club I wanted to do, because I think that Powernomics concepts needs to be standard in our community, right? We need to know that as well as we know basketball, rapping, twerking, and hair weaves. We need to know Powernomics as much as we know anything else. So that's why I wanted to do this. So take care, guys. It was great to see you, and I hope you have a wonderful day. And I love you, and I wish you